All right, it looks like we're live. There we go. Billy Clyde is live in the other format. Let's see, yeah.
Wanted us to see it. Even the ransom demands raise questions. Cryptocurrency wallets, millions requested, yet no money ever moved. In a typical kidnapping case, ransom demands escalate, pressure increases, communication continues. But here, nothing happened, just silence. Which is why some investigators believe the ransom may have been intended as a distraction rather than a genuine demand. Meanwhile, the public reaction was explosive. Candlelight vigils were held in Tucson. National media outlets covered every development, and families across the country watched the story unfold with growing concern. Behind the scenes, tensions inside the investigation were rising, and then another unusual detail surfaced. Two unidentified DNA profiles were reportedly discovered at the scene. Neither matched Nancy, and neither matched each other. Forensic experts say that kind of result can complicate an investigation dramatically because it raises the possibility of multiple unknown individuals being present. Was Nancy targeted by strangers, or did someone with inside knowledge help orchestrate what happened? Investigators are still trying to answer that question, and when they began digging deeper into Nancy's business connections, charity organizations, and financial networks, they discovered a web of relationships that extended far beyond her immediate circle. In other words, Nancy Guthrie wasn't just a private citizen. She was connected.
Somebody hopped in there. Leave a comment in the... If you think she was alive when she left the house, if you think she's still alive, and if you think or you think the ransom notes were fake, leave some kind of comment in there.
And in cases like this, connections matter. Social media reacted instantly.
Truck driving
Theories
son of a
exploded
bitch.
online. Some people defended
All right,
the
we
family,
got some more
while
people in
others
there. Let's start
questioned the
getting some
official
chat
narrative.
going.
One viral post asked, "If this was a kidnapping, why hasn't the ransom been paid?" Another user wrote, "Someone wanted us focused on the money while something else was happening." Meanwhile, investigators acknowledged another troubling fact. There is still no confirmed proof of life, no verified calls, no confirmed sightings, just the masked figure, the empty crypto wallets, and a growing list of unanswered questions. Which brings us back to the biggest mystery of all.
I've been complaining all week about the AI content. That's just AI reading file footage. They put it all together. They hit a button. They create a video that's fake and a fake voice reading it. I don't care. You click off of here. Go find somebody that's a real person and try to watch them. Don't sit there and watch that fake shit if you don't have to. I can't find anything else on tonight, but generally speaking, find a real person. Don't listen to that automated, auto-created. Now, some people use AI voiceovers in a legitimate fashion, and I use AI to create logos because I don't want to sit there and Photoshop or GIMP and draw all day when you can just do it with AI. AI is a good tool, but don't become AI where you don't even... those faceless channels and AI slop, that shit needs to go.
Really
Let's get some
happened
comments going in
inside
there.
that
What do you
house
got?
the night Nancy Guthrie disappeared? Was this a carefully planned abduction, a targeted operation, or something even more complicated involving people Nancy trusted? Because the deeper investigators dig, the more possibilities they uncover.
All right, we got 8
And if
people
one
in
thing
there.
is
The other
clear,
night I had
it's
people
this:
show up
This case is far from solved.
And they thought they were going to Euro Truck Simulator, and I moved most of the Truck Simulator stuff over to Gray Line Racing. That's at Gray-Line-Racing, and I stream over there iRacing and the trucks and whatnot. But I think it confuses the channel what you're trying to do. I was trying to do too much stuff on this channel. I tried to clean it up a little bit. So I moved the Truck Simulator stuff over to Gray Line Racing, like I said. Welcome to come over there and check stuff out anytime. Leave some comments. Got any ideas what you want to see? We can do whatever we want to do over there. Anyway, let's get back to this.
If anything,
AI
it's just
slap
beginning.
bullshit.
So now the question is yours. Was Nancy Guthrie the victim of a calculated kidnapping? Or is there something else happening behind the scenes that investigators haven't revealed yet? Tell me what you think in the comments and stay tuned, because in cases like this, the moment the evidence finally speaks, everything changes.
This $10 pen fixed what $1,000 worth of cream.
All right, there's not a lot on here. As long as on the Nancy Guthrie topic, I'm getting kind of tired. Forgot how to talk. Let's see what we got right here. Peace. My poor old
Well, hey, folks, in
PC.
today's episode, I'm joined by my friend Phil Waters, a retired homicide detective from Houston PD.
Am I going to
Longtime
prison
law
for
enforcement
restreaming this
instructor,
guy's
a guy that's
stuff?
been around. Phil and I have had the chance to appear on shows together over the years, and I really trust his judgment. Not only because he's disciplined about evidence and timelines, but he's got the experience to back it up, to talk about what's really going on behind the scenes. And sometimes the duck is
All right,
swimming
somebody
a lot
cut out,
faster
left
than it
no
appears
comments.
like on the surface. We're going to be talking about the most recent developments in the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. We're going to cover what the public updates are suggesting, what they don't, and why early crime scene decisions can matter months later, may even impact the case. We're going to also dig into a batch of other
What do you
things
think?
around this case.
At least he's
that's
a
now
real
on
person.
hold. But I don't think it's cold, and we're going to get Phil's perspective in a minute. So welcome to Profile.
No, just because they stopped telling the press stuff doesn't mean that it's cold. They're still investigating all that traffic video, any kind of DNA they might have got. And for some reason, there was a big interest in that car from this Annie Guthrie. It's not a cold case yet. Now, in reality, they may have nothing else, but don't think that they've given up already. They're still over there doing stuff.
Evil.
All right, welcome. Got another person and a half showed up. Let's get some comments rolling in. Come on now. All right,
Please,
there you go.
take-
Come on, Pugsley. Let's leave the music off and get rolling.
Take a second, hit the like and subscribe button, share this episode with your friends, do everything you can to kind of
Well, we're sharing, buddy. You may not like the way I'm sharing, but we're sharing your stuff because there's nothing else on right now.
hype us up and promote us, because it really does help us to continue to grow, and we like growing. Now, Nancy Guthrie is an 84-year-old woman reported missing from the Tucson, Arizona area. The moment this thing started, the public story
We're losing viewers. We
kinds of competing
get some
tones.
text, get some
A
chat
missing
going in there
person
so we can get
versus
talking about
possible foul
something.
play, and that changed pretty quickly in the early stages. I'm going to talk to Phil about that in just a moment. But what's driving the escalation online is also something I want to talk about, and the speculation online, whether it's blood evidence or personal items like the watch. The recent CCTV camera footage that's picking up a vehicle driving by, or
If you see me looking all over the place, it's kind of hard. I'm looking at the screen straight ahead of me where OBS is running. I can see what's happening. But what you're seeing is over here. I'm playing that on one screen. And then a third screen, I got the YouTube analytics up there, making sure that it's actually playing and I can see the connection quality. And then I also got my phone sitting here. So I look around, I see 4 of me stacked up. So it's hard. I'm so damn good looking, it's hard not to look at myself. So if I'm looking around, that's why.
The myriad of gloves they're recovering miles away from the home. And at the same time, as we look at these public updates that feel pretty uneven and
We're
frankly
losing it.
fueling
We're
a
down to
ton of
6. You guys are
speculation,
jumping off. Let's
we got
get some
law
comments
enforcement behind
going.
the scenes, perhaps in a little bit of a controversial pitch between the federal law enforcement folks and the local law enforcement. But let me introduce my guest. It's Phil Waters, and this guy
Phil
is an
Waters.
honorably retired homicide detective. He's been a longtime law enforcement figure in the South and now nationally, as his expertise has come into play on all of the major
I
media
hate the
outlets.
fact that
He's been trained in
everything
investigations and
is moving to
interviews,
this
courtroom testimony. He's handled complex criminal cases for decades.
vertical
and he understands
format
how
where
crime
nothing
scenes
fits on the
should be
screen right.
handled, the discipline behind dealing with a tough
So
case.
if I was to just put that
and
full
all
screen,
things
you could
law
only see
enforcement.
one of the two.
And again, we passed.
Yeah, I could take myself off, make that full screen, zoom it out.
Phil, I am
You'd
just
only
so
see
thrilled
one
to
of
get
them.
to
The
take
other guy
time to
wouldn't be on the
chat
screen.
today.
Well, I appreciate you having me on board here, Mike. It's good to see you and talk with you again.
Well, thanks. I want to
We
start
got
right
6.
off with kind of the
I
elephant
hear a
in the
ding
room,
of
and
it.
that's the disruption that the
I
true
got a little
crime
ding.
community can play in a case like this. And
I got a ding set up. You put a chat in there, it'll ding, and I'll catch it and then can respond to it.
And whether you and I like it or not, we're now wases instead of ises, and we're part of the true crime community, but hopefully a little bit set apart from some of the wild speculation, and where we try to talk a little more factually
The
about
average
what's
viewer
going
went
on.
up, then it went
What's been
back
your
down.
sense as you've watched this thing unfolding from the social?
Anyway, welcome to the channel. I'm Billy Clyde Tuggle, the truck driving son of a bitch. Part-time truck driver, part-time lawyer, full-time son of a bitch. If you see behind me those 4 screens back there, you try to get out of the way. That's my racing / truck driving simulator. You can catch that on the other channels. I spent about $4,000 on that last year, upgrading everything but the computer. So if you're interested, you came here because you got here through a simulator racing or truck driving. I haven't been doing the flight sims for a while, but if you came through that way, leave it in the chat and I'll tell you where to go to see some of that stuff.
Perspective and what's happening behind the scenes.
Okay, so everyone thinks baked on grease needs strong chemicals to get it off, but
Come on now.
that's a lie.
All right, not doing anything special.
Well, there's a commercial
that
why
was,
you should go to
the
YouTube Premium right
started
there.
this
Damn commercial.
conversation with.
There you go.
What we're seeing here
Got a
is
text from myself up there.
the
That's
fact that
looking
it
good.
becomes a high-profile case immediately because of who the individual involved was and what her association is with Savannah Guthrie, who is a well-known media figure in the United States and probably around the world. So that immediate fueling of the investigation, where it was going, how it was being conducted, started from the very beginning. And then it became more confusing because of the lack of experience that the sheriff had in just being able to stand up at a presser.
Boy, we're down to an average a
and
little
talk
over
about
3.
an
It's getting
investigation.
ugly.
And he was, I mean,
We
from
had
the very
about 10
beginning,
for a
he
minute.
even stated how uncomfortable he was about being up there in front of the press and this and that. And he was apologizing right off the bat. That does not set a positive tone for the ensuing investigation. So I think from the very beginning, that kind of confused, I guess, expression of what was going on in the investigation started, and it just caught fire. And of course, all the true crime buffs immediately pick up on it. And now here comes the criticism. Then you have 3 days later, you have this jerk from TMZ who pops up and talks about this email that he got from, a ransom and all this stuff. And that should have gone immediately to the Pima County Sheriff's Office detectives and the FBI. It never should have been broadcast publicly, but he wanted to make himself part of the story, which he did, and it continued on. So, um,
I think he's talking about Howard, Harvey Levinson, and I agree with that. If on a serious matter like that, they should have turned that over to the authorities with some sort of non-disclosure agreement, to where if they did make it public, they had to let TMZ do it first. But they should have kept that stuff out of the public and left that up to the police and the FBI. They shouldn't have been on TV with that shit.
I think because of who
Boy, we're down to
Guthrie
3.
is,
We're
and who
hurting.
Savannah Guthrie is,
We're hurting.
it
Got an
started
average
off
of 3.
with this
3 swipers going
crazy
by.
rendering from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I want to go back and kind of explore that from a couple of angles, because a
All
couple
right.
of things you said really troubled
We
me
got
from
back
the
up to
beginning.
5.
And I
Let's
think
go.
it's systemic
Welcome.
with the difference between
I'm
the
Billy
office
Clyde
of
Tuggle.
sheriff, which is an elected position, and a city police department. And, I mean, I was fortunate to spend quite a bit of time in your police department, the Houston Police Department, working with your crime analysis folks on the GIS side of the house and how mapping can help in those kinds of cases. Many of your chiefs I knew through the Major City Chiefs Association, and was personal friends with one in particular, where
My
I spent a
computer
lot
is
of time with that
struggling right
individual there. I know how you handle things down there. And I remember this particular chief, it's Chief Art Acevedo. When Art was chief, I remember
Yeah,
one day
she
sitting
is
at lunch
big.
with him and him talking about his challenges become he called it the community of 10, the 10 people in the community who are yapping the most and creating the most noise out there, that cause so much of his administrative time, and his attempts to try to buffer between what the detectives and the investigators and police
All
officers are
right, we
doing
got back up.
versus managing
Got an
the
8 average.
community.
Somebody
But
leave some
but
comments.
a county
Let's
sheriff that's
get some
elected
conversation going.
has to report
Sitting
to
here
the public
talking to
a little
myself all night,
differently.
complaining about
But
AI.
that doesn't mean you have to get out in front of them and tell
What happened
what's
to the
going
other
on
guy?
in your
Where'd he go?
investigation. And I don't know. I guess I felt from the beginning, Phil, that there was just way too much talking. I would have preferred to see a weekly sheet of paper that says, here's where we are on the investigation, because you could vet it, you could qualify it with your federal partners and be on the same sheet of paper. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. I agree. After the second press conference where he said there's not going to be any more, the second press conference really.
I was doing this the other night and shit started flashing. Said you're using somebody else's content, so I shut it down and I deleted the VOD. I don't want to step on any toes. But there's just nothing on it. There's nothing on tonight. They haven't got enough to look at.
Well, I guess it was the first press conference that he had the ASAC from the FBI that came up and spoke. And what I thought was interesting about that particular presser was that the ASAC felt a need to spell his name. And I thought, how odd. And his name was something like Chapman or something.
All right, folks,
I mean,
I've had it. The donkeys are out.
So, and then in the second presser, they had the SAC, I think out of Phoenix, who actually showed up, and he did not spell his name. And I think his last name was Johnson. So I thought that was a step up for the FBI. But, when the sheriff said, I understand him getting out there at the beginning. He does represent the department. He is representing the investigation. And make no mistake about it, it's their investigation. It belongs to them. The FBI even, in Houston, we had a kidnapping. The FBI comes in as a matter of drill. They have resources that we didn't have, and they were in there for support and to kind of shore up all the things that we were doing. And we've worked with those guys, and I've worked with those guys. I've got some great friends that were over there that we worked very, very well together. The sheriff Uh, so that struggle becomes, and this goes back to some of the social media stuff. All of a sudden, why aren't the FBI
No
taking it?
comments,
So
nothing going
that all of a
on.
sudden puts this pressure on the sheriff, and
Listen
he's
to
up there
this
trying to constantly
knucklehead.
explain it's our investigation, which makes him look bad. He's got some history with the FBI. He's got some.
I got a
I've
media
talked to
source here, and I
a couple
can't
of guys
figure
that
out why.
worked at Pima County, and he does have a little bit of a rough reputation in dealing with the FBI. However, having said all that, getting back to the presser stuff, after the second press conference, when he said there would be no more press conferences until we've got something really, really good to tell you, that should have immediately been any of that stuff, just what you said, either should have been released by a press release that's something they could read, or have the PIO get up there and read the press release. So it should have been relegated to the people that do that for a living. But what the sheriff decided to do was do these individual little interviews with these reporters sitting in his office in his golf shirt, chatting it up. And that just adds further confusion. And so, and then you got coupled with that, you've got unnamed sources within law enforcement releasing stuff, information. And whoever those people are, they are not serving that investigation well. They should not be doing that. And any communication about the case itself should be made through
All
the
right,
sheriff's
folks, I've had
office
it.
and
The
the FBI,
donkeys are
not
out.
these
The elephants
unnamed
are out.
sources that are leaking this stuff to the media. It just feeds the fire of confusion.
Let me tell you what, Phil, I am so glad you said that because
All right, folks, I've had it. The donkeys are out. The elephants are out. They had their chance, and they spent it arguing over who invented potholes. Make room for the possums. We're taking over. No more filibusters. No more fancy ties. No more debates where nobody gets tackled. I'm Billy Cut.
in one of my videos
Oh, we're
just
down to
a
like
week
one
ago
guy
when
now.
someone had from the media announced that a source has revealed this and it spun into a life of its own. I said, you know what? I got an email the other day that suggested that possibly
Oh, the other guy came
Bigfoot
back.
could have been involved in this abduction. It's a source. That doesn't mean you go out and publicize it, and that you don't go out.
All right, folks, I've had it. The donkeys are out. The elephants are out. They had their chance, and they spent it arguing over who invented potholes. Make room for the possums. We're taking over. No more filibusters. No more fancy ties. No more debates where nobody gets tackled. I'm Billy Costello, and I'm running for president in 2028. My platform, just one plank. Don't be stupid. My slogan, if it ain't broke, it ain't in Possum County. Let's do this. All right, folks, there you have it. I'll see you at the polls. I'm Billy Clyde Tuggle, and I'm out like a possum in the headlights.
Out and say this is a source from inside.
All right,
because
you got any
especially in a
comments?
sheriff's
Comments?
department
Did she
that's
leave the house
approaching an
alive?
election,
Is
there
she
is
still
so much
alive? Are the
internal
ransom notes
contention
fake?
going on and people vying for
Did
who
any family
the next
member have
sheriff's
something to
gonna
do
be
with
in
it?
position
Somebody
of.
leave some comments that we can
I
discuss.
guess I just wanted to pull my hair out when that happened.
Well, that kind of stuff, I mean, and you and I both, I think you probably had people contact us. I had a psychic contact me.
Wow,
I've
that's
had
the
that
first I
happen
heard of
in
it.
the course of
I
an
hadn't even
investigation.
thought
In
of
fact,
that.
it was a
Psychics.
kidnapping. I had a
That's
psychic
like
contact
70s
me
shit.
to tell me that she knew where the gal was that had been kidnapped, and so forth and so on. And then I've had some emails that have been sent to me from people. Here's my theory, and blah blah blah. So yeah, these kinds of things fuel and distract from the investigation. Now, what I'm hopeful of, is that the detectives and the agents
No, don't
involved
do
in the
that.
investigation
Shit.
are not being distracted by all this noise. That they've got their, they're hitting the bricks. They've got, they're on the grindstone, and they're out there doing
Come
detective
on
work and
now. We
trying to
only
get this thing
got an average of
solved and
2.
resolved.
Come on.
So that I'm sure it's frustrating for them when they hear the noise, but I don't think they are being distracted by it.
Profiling
It does
Eagle with
cause
Pugsley
a
Anderson.
lot of unnecessary speculation, and people out, everybody wants to put their 2 cents in, and it's just a distraction. It does not enhance the investigation at all. It doesn't assist in it. In fact, sometimes it hinders it.
Especially when the victim in the case is a high profile victim because of her association with her daughter. And even when you see things like the president of the United States weighing in on how this investigation's going, it is so inappropriate and clearly is an opportunity to take advantage of, I guess, the notoriety in the case. Let's kind of step back to the very first day of this case,
Are
because
they
sometimes I
saying
think people
anything?
don't quite
What are they
understand
saying? What are they
the
talking about? Come
mechanics
on now.
of that call coming in to go do a welfare check. This is a patrol officer that could have a week out of the field training program and be brand new, walk into that door and tapping on it. Or it could have been an old salty guy that's been in detectives and back to patrol, or whatever the case may be. But it's a patrol officer that shows up, or in this case, a deputy that shows up first and foremost, and then makes a determination that the case needs to be escalated and get a detective in.
You've got
And
people in the
I mean, you
house
faced
talking in the
this
background. That's
1,000 times as a homicide investigator, where you came into a crime scene that the patrol division had worked on. And I don't know if you remember the BTK case, but
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
in the BTK case, Kenny Landwehr, the detective that handled that case from as a patrolman, and then when he retired as a lieutenant is when they finally captured Rader. So he lived this case his entire life. But as a patrolman, he told me one night we were talking about the case, and he said that when he went in, he saw this.
Whoa, we got back up to six.
After he went
Let's
in
get
and
some
secured
comments
the home,
going.
people started showing up. The police chief
Average
showed
is
up.
6.
One of the
I don't know how
commanders
long
showed up, and people were
there as long as
walking
it
through
takes
this
a finger to
horrendous
go like
crime
that, I
scene to get
think.
a
But
look-see.
somebody leave some comments.
And he said later he noticed that there was a tray of ice cubes on the counter when we used to make our own ice. And he said, I started marking the time that I saw that, because I knew that was something that the predator must have handled. And so I was starting to build a timeline
All right,
on
we
this
got
thing.
6
And
of
I
us in
spent
here.
2
Let's
hours
get a comment.
trying to collect glasses and other kinds of things, thinking I might have some evidence. When the deputy chief walked by and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm working on this these ice cubes." And he said, "Well, no, I was hot in here, so I made myself some iced tea while I was in my crime scene."
Jeez.
So talk people through this process of how challenging it is that even the people that should be there can contaminate a crime scene. But then the absolute wart in this investigation, in my opinion, of leaving that crime scene with evidence that suggests that this is not a missing person, the things that may have been or may become the real.
You got a person that's missing. That makes it a missing person deal. I know he's trying to be more technical than that, but come on now.
Real Achilles heel for this investigation.
Oh, shit.
Watching the art.
Just think of that as a commercial for YouTube Premium.
I would say that's a great story about the chief and his tea.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I taught.
I keep looking at the other
officer
screen
involved
that's
shooting.
bigger.
So,
what you see is over here, and it's bigger.
Investigating officer involved
And
shooting.
I got to
which is
look
where
at the
we
little
would
screen with the
have
camera above it. Otherwise, you
turnout of
don't know what
those
I'm looking at.
types of
I
people,
got
command
screens
staff,
all
and so
over the
forth and
place.
so on. And even when I taught just investigations as a homicide cop, I said the first thing that scene has to be secured, and that means secured from everyone. Now, at the Houston Police Department, I would think it's a lot the same everywhere, but homicide owns that scene. Nobody else gets inside that tape. Nobody gets inside that perimeter except for crime scene units and
me
the
try to
homicide
turn.
detectives themselves.
Let's turn this
All
off.
the chiefs and admirals and field marshals and all these people
My
that
computer's
show up
struggling
because
right
they're
now. It's
rubbernecking, they don't get
over here.
inside it. And if they find one of them inside of it,
CPU at
I have taught and I
82%
have
right
done
now.
it.
That's not
You
good.
walk up and you
It's an old
respectfully ask
computer
them
though.
to step outside.
The
of
one
the
back
room.
here on the
And
racing
I've never had
simulator
one
is
chief
a lot
tell
newer,
me,
but
look,
even
I'm a
it's
chief, I'm
about
gonna
ready to
stand
be
here.
replaced.
Not one, ever.
That
And in fact, I
computer
had
under the
one
desk here,
chief,
it's a
an executive
10-year-old
assistant chief
Alien
that
Gamingware computer.
uh,
So she's had it.
called me while I was on the scene of an officer-involved shooting. And there was a rumor going around that he was going to come out and he was going to do this and he was going to do that. And I just, because one of the sergeants had been communicated something, and I just told him, I said, you tell whoever you spoke with, homicide's in charge out here with this scene. We don't need
Trying
any
to
other
close
help
some
and
stuff
we don't need
down
other
to get
people
the.
out here. And that chief called me and apologized because it was a miscommunication.
We got
And
that
I knew the
processor
chief,
doing a
it
little
wasn't
better.
like
What
just
else
a
can I
one-off
close?
kind of thing. But in regards to the scene at Nancy Guthrie's house,
All right, you're doing a little
you
better.
know, I think the first thing is that the deputies were sent to the wrong location initially, is what I have read. Then when they finally do get to the right location, there are some signs there that there's something that's not good. And I'm going to presume it was the blood drops on the front porch, which kind of tipped them off. And nobody responding, of course, to the knock on.
You know that recent case where the dentist and his wife were killed by the woman's ex-husband? Same thing happened there. The cops spent the whole morning and they apparently went to the wrong house. What the hell?
The door and whatever. Then you know, and there's a process when we patrol and it would call.
Oh, we just had a
homicide intake desk.
big drop.
Here's what we've got.
Big drop.
We might send a crime scene unit out there first to evaluate
Come on
the
now.
scene, and then the crime scene unit would make a determination whether or not to call back and say, probably need a pair out here to come out and take a look. And that's what happened here in the process of this particular scene. So they didn't know what they had, other than they had some evidence that showed that something nefarious had taken place.
Nefarious. There you go, buddy.
And so that's when the investigation starts. When those deputies show up at that scene and make that determination.
All right, folks, I've had it. The donkeys are out. The elephants are out. They had their chance, and they spent it arguing over who invented potholes. Make room for the possums. We're taking over. No more filibusters. No more fancy ties. No more debates where nobody gets tackled. I'm Billy Costello, and I'm running for president in 2028. My platform, just one plank. Don't be stupid. My slogan, if it ain't broke, it ain't in Possum County. Let's do this. All right, folks. There you go. I cut the end of that off. It's it's a short that we don't need. Just played it on here.
Now,
Well, maybe somebody came
I
back.
don't look.
Not getting any
People have made
comments, so
some
I don't think
comments about
anybody's.
the
I can
scene
see
was
the
released too soon,
the
that this,
analytics
that.
go up and down, but that might
And, of
just
course,
take
that's
5
all
people
armchair,
swipe through, and that
quarterbacking.
4 seconds of
you know, a
swiping
week
that
later.
looks like
So
somebody's
I would
watching.
say
Nobody's watching. I'm talking to
My
myself.
impression was, number one, Pima County's not a little department. So they've got 600 sworn personnel.
Wow.
800 support personnel. So it's a good sized department. I would imagine they've got more than a couple of crime scene units. I would think there's a possibility.
It's 11:30 my time, and I've been awake
there,
since
1 or 2.
4:30.
And they process the scene. And once that scene is processed, they spend hours out there. They process the scene. And then the detectives determine at what point the scene is released. And the processing of the scene was complete. The detectives released the scene. Now, they went back to it because the FBI is now involved, and the FBI requested to go back to the scene. And I would have to believe that some of that was based on some tips. Because if you remember, there was one point where the FBI went back and they brought a dog with them. Now, I would imagine that was a cadaver dog.
Got 2 watching and
another
4
time
likes.
they went back
2
and
watching.
they're
You got any
poking around in the
comments?
septic tank.
Did she
So,
leave the house
you
alive?
know,
Is
just
she
because the
alive
scene
now?
was
Are the
released
ransom
after
notes
having been
fake?
processed
Did a
doesn't mean
family
you won't
member
go
have
back
something to
to
do
it
with
if
it?
you
You
receive
got any kind of
information that leads you
comments or
back
anything
to
that
it.
you
I've
think
had that happen in
we can talk
investigations that
about
I
here?
run, where I saw something
Leave
on
it
a
in the
video
comments
that I
there.
did not
Leave it in
know
the
about
chat.
at the time, and I've gone back to the scene to retrieve whatever DNA or whatever that evidence showed on the video that I wasn't aware of. So going back to a scene is not something that's unheard of. Securing the scene after it's been processed, uh, they did what they needed to do, and so then you've got the results of that has to be sent off for further processing at a lab somewhere, whether it's the digital stuff, the blood evidence, the DNA type stuff, swabs that are being taken, any kind of fingerprints that were taken. So all of that stuff has to be processed. It just doesn't happen on, 43 minutes with no commercials. And it takes time. And so now we're into that mode where they've got so
There
much
we
digital
go,
evidence.
84.
And that's when they brought in the FBI's
Gained a
advanced
subscriber
digital
in the last
recovery
little
team.
while.
And that's their expertise.
3
And
people
there's nothing
watching.
cell
One of
towers.
them's
I mean,
me. Leave some
there's so much
comments.
stuff going
You
on
got a
here
comment?
in the world in the means of forensics that
Questions?
I don't see anything
Is she alive?
that
Did she
was.
leave the house alive?
I mean,
Are the
you can
ransom
always
notes
talk
fake?
about
Did
coulda,
the
shoulda,
family
wouldas.
members have
I wish
something
I'd
to
have
do
done
with
this.
it?
I wish I'd have done that, and blah blah blah. But in terms of what I saw
One
initially,
watching,
and
and
then
it's
as
just me.
progressed, I don't see anything terribly unusual here in the course of an investigation. The only thing that makes this different is the high profile nature of it. And everybody is seeing the inner workings of an investigation in real time. And they don't have any experience in evaluating it from that perspective. So um, I think all this stuff about the scene and this stuff, I think a lot of that's been directed in the wrong way.
You know what? When I'm looking at cases like this, one of the first places I go is to my go-to partner, newspapers.com.
Well, Pugsley thought it was time to do one of those inline commercials, so we'll take a break from that, and we'll run one of our own commercials. All right, folks, I've had it. The donkeys are out. The elephants are out. They had their chance, and they spent it arguing over who invented potholes. Make room for the possums. We're taking over. No more filibusters. No more fancy ties. No more debates where nobody gets tackled. I'm Billy Cotto, and I'm running for president in 2028. My platform, just one plank. Don't be stupid. My slogan, if it ain't broke, it ain't in Possum County. Let's do this. All right, folks, there you have it. I'll see you at the polls. I'm Billy Clyde Tuggle, and I'm out like a possum in the headlights. All right, folks, I've had it. The donkeys are out. All right, let go of that ear, Pugsley.
That the camera infrastructure.
All right, got 4 in there
at the
now.
city
Leave a
level
comment. Let's talk
was,
about something.
Not in great repair. At the county level, was in less quality of repair. That many locations had poor imagery, but that some of that was systemic to the local community's complaints that they didn't want to be monitored, and yet that's the same community that's complaining now that they're not being monitored. But the thing that I found so interesting is as we moved into the area, and a couple of just key places on the map, of course, Guthrie's home, her daughter's home, which became an early focus, again, I think inappropriately so by social media, but they're over here. But this location I found pretty interesting when that one of at least 17 gloves was recovered, and it's recovered 2
Average
miles
view
away,
duration,
and that becomes
1
a
minute,
news story
24 seconds. Billy Clyde.
that
Nobody wants to hear your
I
shit
don't
or
know,
nothing.
from the
Hear that
get-go,
guy's
I
shit.
was like, why are we spending so much time on this? And so I did some research and brought in and created, just even to try to help understand the complexity of a 1.5 mile drive time zone around Nancy's home.
Boy, do I have. Shit. I need to go to the restroom and I don't have it.
Again, when as people were challenging how many things may or may not have happened with that, I thought it would be interesting to bring in the homes, the residents that are actually in that home, and how many places. Oops, sorry about that. How many places people would have to search and ring doorbells on. So here at the Guthrie home, people are saying, well, gosh, it's out in the middle of nowhere. Well, no, it's not in the middle of nowhere. There are thousands in that 1.5 mile radius. There were thousands of personal pieces of property when I put the assessor's thing up there, doorbells that had to be rung, and that became a real interesting kind of a thing to me, because again, you talk about those cadaver dogs. Even knowing that Guthrie's home is here, people think, well, why didn't you just search the area? This is still a massive area to search for a needle in a haystack.
Well, that's great. I love the maps. That is really cool. It adds some texture to the discussion, right? So,
Yeah.
well, the thing about it is, I mean, I'm sure they did a canvas. That's investigations 101. You do a canvas of the neighborhood, the immediate area there, and you go out and you start to try to estimate what was the escape route. How did they leave? How did they come in? Do we have cameras along whatever those routes may have been? And you may come up with 2 or 3 different routes. And how far out do you go? 2 or 3 miles in a radius, and start picking up convenience stores and that kind of a thing. And do you have any common vehicles that you can identify that were in the area at the same time on these outer reaches? But Pima County itself is 9,000 square miles, and most of it's desert. Uh, so these folks that think, yeah, you can just go out there and find a body or find someone, it's not realistic, and it's the sin of expectations that are much too high. And so the reality is that it takes time to do this stuff, and the the map you've got up here just shows it's something tangible that we can look at and see what the enormity of trying to cover that area with manpower to ring every doorbell, to canvass every home, and then how far out do you go? So, yeah, that brings that's great, because it brings it right into the reality of an investigation like this and the scope of it.
Yeah, I would hope that they're using something like this. But even if you get down and try to understand, I mean, think back on your own homicide career, where you've found maybe a child that was taken and dumped somewhere. This doesn't feel like much until you're looking and trying to search in that area.
All right, so just scatter some of this throughout your home and then watch what happens overnight.
Well, yeah. Well, number one, I don't believe it's ever been a kidnapping. I mean, that was my take from the beginning. I don't think it was ever a kidnapping. It was good in the sense that it brought the FBI in because they thought that may have been what this was, and bringing in all those resources. But, and I hate to say it, and I've said it before. I mean, I hate to.
So I think why he's saying that, kidnapping is a federal crime. It's not local to the city, state, whatever. Once you enter kidnapping, that's a federal crime. That goes all the way back to when Charles Lindbergh's child was kidnapped. And I don't think they ever got that kid back alive. That was in the 30s. And that's what made kidnapping. I think you can get life in prison for kidnapping. Not prior to Charles Lindbergh. But, that kicked that up enough.
To say it, but we're looking for a recovery now, obviously. I mean, you know, 84-year-old woman with the physical problem, health issues that she had, pacemakers.
There you go. Hear what he said? That's what I think. You hate to talk like that, but you got to be realistic. I keep asking if anybody's catching this. Do you think she's alive? Do you think she left the house alive? Do you think the ransom notes are fake? And do you think the family member's involved? Leave some comments. I ain't got no comments. Leave some comments and we can talk about some stuff, and instead of Pugsley over here talking all night.
So forth and so on.
That's all I got.
And I'm not so sure that she was taken out of the house alive, or she was not more.
Woo, that's rough. There you
when
go.
They removed her. And, you know, a lot of people have said that, you know, why take her? Well, because the body, you know, in our world, Mike, the body is evidence. And so
chili encrusted dried mango
evidence out of there. And so that, I don't find that strange at all. And given the area, there is no telling where they could put her, and only they will be able to bring authorities to her. So that's the conundrum here.
How would you like to? And of course, I mean, you're from Houston, 20 minutes out of town. You start getting into some pretty unforgiving country. Find the body out there.
Well, Houston's 600 plus square miles. Just find it in Houston. In fact, I have my last case that I went to trial on last year was a no body murder, and we have still not recovered the body. And unless this person who's been convicted and is in prison decides to do the right thing and say, this is where I took her, the expectation, you know, hopefully somebody will come along, you know, and find it somewhere. But
I did a story a couple months ago of a man who was arrested, convicted, and executed 70 years ago, and now the DNA proves that he did not do it.
We've got, I want to tell you, 2,500 miles of bayous. I mean, it's unbelievable. So you can hide a body in Houston, Texas, in the area, and never find it. And I have a case just like that. So yeah, I mean, people I think have their expectations about something, about finding a body. Again, I mean, they watch a lot of television, and that's just not reality.
Yeah.
Leave some comments.
I wanted to pop up one other thing before I turn this map off, and that was the CCTV camera that picked up the cars driving by that became so much fodder. I actually was on with Vinny Friday night talking about that and saying that in order to get there, they would have had to have, the moment that pacemaker disconnected from the phone itself, they had 6 minutes to get to that location, which you could drive and make it when I looked at the travel route. But the thing that I found so interesting, Phil, and this is the most likely route that they would have driven to go past that house to capture that video, if in fact that was the same vehicle, is right in this area where I'm circling the mouse arrow a little bit, is that area where that glove that became so significant for so many weeks.
One glove,
Again,
2.5 miles away, could have been anybody.
That were recovered up to 7 miles away. And we were spending airwave time talking about this glove right here, which I struggled with the minute that one came out.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
what I found was kind of interesting is that this, if in fact that vehicle is tied to this location, this is a destination because there aren't any outlets over here when you look at the road network in comparison to. In fact, I'll just do that real quickly to kind of to highlight that. That
Welcome.
road
Leave a
network
comment.
down into that area, you can't go anywhere but into here. Where if you were to look at other areas as an egress point, where that glove was recovered, yeah, goes down to a main thoroughfare. Eastbound gets you out to main thoroughfares. Even northbound gets you to where you can get out of Dodge pretty quickly, and even eastbound. But that location right there, there's no place to go. So the motivation to go there, unless they were lost, and you have to always, I guess, think about stuff like that too. But
Yeah, sure.
what was that to me? It just seemed less likely to be tied to this case.
Cesar Millan, how to add years to your dog's life.
I agree with you. When they popped up with the glove, again, the thing that's
Another
unique
commercial
about
for
this
YouTube
investigation is
Premium. Maybe you
we're
can
seeing,
afford it. I don't want to spend the
you know,
money on
we're
it. I
seeing
got too
it
many
play
monthly
out,
things already.
and I don't think people are used to that. So, the media, they promote this stuff, right? I mean, they gotta get after. Oh, the glove, and they all this stuff has been on the glove. And I'm sitting there with the minute I saw the glove, I thought, well, that's a piece of evidence. That's one of those things that you collected, and you may not need it, but if you need it, you need to collect it. So it's
Well
kind of
done.
one of those things where you pick it up, and you'd
That was
rather
kind of like a
collect it,
chicken
not
or
need it,
the
than need
egg
it,
deal
not
he
collect
just
it. So,
described there.
and then my thought is, well, hey, so what's going to determine whether this glove means anything? Is Nancy Guthrie's DNA on it? Is there DNA inside of it that that wraps to the house, to the scene?
If it was a glove that had something to do with it would more likely have DNA from the perpetrator, not the victim. But what do I know? I don't know anything.
And that's going to determine whether or not
What do you
this
think? Leave a
piece
comment.
of evidence has any probative value at all. And then
Down
it
to
turns
two
out
again.
it doesn't. So, but people clamor because they're seeing this investigation take place in real time. It's like the search warrants that were run and the people that were detained and then this and that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been a media firestorm now. This latest little dust up in the Middle East has taken a lot of this right off the television
that's
screen.
true.
And that may be a good thing in the sense that it's less distracting for the detectives. And at this point in time, like I've said, they are they're waiting for the results of stuff. So you've got
to keep in mind, it's not the detectives, the police, the sheriff, the FBI. It's not their job to inform us. It's their job to investigate the case. And people think that they should just tell us everything, and that's wrong because it could compromise the case. You got 400 people parked in front of the house and trampling around and bugging people and shit, and me doing stupid shit on here, and you watching people do stupid shit. The FBI and the sheriff's department, they have their own work to do, and informing the public comes secondary, maybe every tertiary, whatever, but it's not their job to inform us. That's the press's job. And if the police and the sheriff are not communicating with the press, there's probably a reason. They're not ready.
the evidence recovery team from the FBI involved in this. You've got their advanced forensic digital recovery people in it. I'm sure they're dumping cell towers, but those take time. I had an investigation where we dumped a cell tower, and there were 100,000 phone calls, and we had the exact time frame in which this person was using a cell phone. it was a month later, 2 months later, where the FBI agent that was working it was real excited because he pared it down to 50,000.
Wow.
And then 2 months later, he comes down and says, "Okay, I've got it down to 15,000." And I'm like, it's amazing.
Same with the traffic cam footage. I know it was late at night and all that, but still, imagine the amount of footage on the combination of all the cameras that they got to go through.
Amazing to me that they can do it, but this stuff takes time, and people just have to be patient.
Phil, the other thing that I found so interesting with the number of media that are looking at this case and the number of socialized content creators that are putting stuff out or hanging around is how would you like to be those police officers having a cadre of people camped outside the police department just waiting for you to mobilize a vehicle so they can follow you to the next search warrant?
Well, and that's a huge distraction. And of course they're all, SWAT's all doing this and doing that. Look, when there were many times where we were executing warrants, and we would have SWAT come in and secure the scene, and we come in behind them and process, whatever the search warrant's calling for, and or we would use the Gulf Coast.
Got a few more popped in there. Leave some comments. If you're there swiping long enough to leave a comment, leave a comment so we can talk about it.
Behind him, and I'm putting the handcuffs on somebody. So people only know what they know based on what they see, and not necessarily what they have experienced. So, and then they try to attach that same kind of thing to every investigation. All these true crime, they attach the same. I've watched all these different shows, and I know that this and that, blah blah blah. And and I appreciate their interest in all that, but the problem is that it does confuse things. And in regards to the cell site stuff that she's talking about, I had a triple homicide. There was an AUSA that was possibly a target, and we brought the FBI in.
And let me just, because people don't know sometimes the acronyms, folks, he's talking about an assistant attorney for the U.S. Attorney's Office when he uses that acronym.
And so we brought in their digital people, and we had the bad guy on video. I've got the entire episode, the entire incident on video. We didn't have access to the DVR at the time. We got that later when our forensics video people downloaded it, and we could see exactly what happened and who did it. But the guy was all dressed up, much like these guys, dressed up, clearly trying to disguise themselves. But he was before he walked into the office. And started
confusing.
Killing,
you got to move. I'm trying to center myself, and you got to move the wrong way.
It was really on the phone.
Backwards.
So we brought him in. They found the tower.
There we go. Somebody's on there.
Did a dump on that particular tower, which was, I was telling you, it had
Don
100,000, and we had a time
8549. Hello.
We had like a 40-minute time.
You think she's alive still?
We were really very specific.
You think she left the house alive?
Of Houston, Texas, in the morning. So you can imagine just that time frame. There were over 100,000 freaking calls, and it takes time to get through all of those calls to get you down to the right one. And so it's great to have this stuff, but again,
yes, you think she's still alive?
Time,
okay,
it just doesn't happen in an instant.
You think the ransom notes are real?
It's very tedious.
You think the family had anything to do with it? What do you think's going on?
Digital stuff. I don't know how they do it. You got to be really freaking focused. You gotta. But that's what they do. That's what they love.
Well, that would be amazing if she did. So, they did find her and get her back alive. That would just be amazing.
In the Guthrie investigation,
is it day 40 or 41
I'm
now?
Still confident that they're going to find the right person who's done the wrong thing to Nancy Guthrie, and my prayer is that they bring her home. And so. But we wouldn't even
frat boy.
This if it wasn't.
Yeah, you got to watch this frat boy.
High-profile nature of it.
You should get life
These
insurance.
damn
Because
commercials.
you never know. My dad.
Everybody, I hope you're enjoying this conversation with
Oh,
Phil
you again,
Waters.
Ruben.
We're talking about the Nancy.
He's wanting to do live commercials. Well, if the frat boys are doing it, maybe it's a tuner car gang doing it. Maybe some off-road truckers.
Number of people now in an abduction, it's about 100 a year if I'm understanding the Bureau of Justice statistics correctly. But when
Yeah.
you're talking missing persons, it's 800,000 a year.
Oh, yeah.
And to expect law enforcement to spin up to the degree that a case like this takes on every one of those missing person cases, while you wish you could, that doesn't make
Yeah,
bit of sense.
that's not reality. No department's got the resources to do that kind of a thing. That's why missing person. That's why people get frustrated with missing persons. You know, we've got a missing person division, and really they're just kind of report takers, right? I mean, and if they have something that looks like it's moving in a different direction, who do they call? They call homicide. And then we take it over, and then and so we may work hand in hand with them, but once there's an indication that there's something nefarious going on, boom, it goes to homicide, and that's what's happened in this particular case. Although
Got 7 in there now. Let's get some more
people have gotten
comments.
confused, I've referred to the scene that they
Somebody
got to
have some ideas.
scene. Well, it's the homicide detectives that are working the kidnapping, regardless of whether it is a murder. It is still a homicide scene. So I have to make the
Dawn
distinction
Emirati
between
thinks she's alive, and
the-
he
but it
thinks
is
the frat
being
boys took her.
processed as if a murder occurred there. So people
Hey, for
get the
hazing
terminology
night.
about what's happening in the course of an investigation. So at this point, I just don't see anything strange that's been taking place in this investigation. You have these ups and downs, and that's the nature of the
The
beast.
average view duration is dropping
And now's
down to
the
50
now's
seconds.
the work, isn't it? I mean, you've
There we
got
go.
through this immediate casting of the net, and now you're going back and
31
trying to
frats
go
in
through
Tucson.
every bit of information that's come in again on those tips, for one thing. But I think it's also kind of interesting because I would say in many cases, in a case like this one, that the suspect who might ultimately get charged or suspects
The other guy, I don't know
probably
why he's
already
not
have
on the
been
screen.
identified. It's just a process of getting all of the evidence to support it and make a case that's going to make it through court. That's my personal opinion on these on these cases like this, where there's so much focus, so much emphasis on the individual rather than just an opportunistic kind of thing. And I'm not saying this wasn't opportunistic, because I still find myself leaning a lot toward this could have been something that just fell apart, and somebody who fantasized about how they were going to dress up and break into a house suddenly had a tiger by the tail. But I do think they've made some decisions that made this a lot more focused on the victim and the victimology.
Well, of course. I mean, because of who Savannah Guthrie is. I mean, that's just the reality here, and that's not. And I'm not trying to minimize it. It certainly is something that has to be considered. That is this something that's been done because of who Savannah Guthrie is. I mean, she started her career, I think, at Court TV. So I mean, she's got a pretty long career. There's no telling who feathers she may have ruffled along the way. But the Guthrie home there is it's a nice home, swimming pool. I mean, and I would think that people they know who she is, and it may not have been her being a target, may not have been an arbitrary thing. but it may have been based on what they thought she had that they could steal.
None of it makes sense. Also,
we're only going to know.
I don't think they ever said anything was missing from the house.
Someone is in
I'm
custody.
pretty sure there was a safe that was untouched.
They will offer up admissions and an explanation as to what they did and why they did it and where they took her. I'm more inclined to believe that they went in there for the purpose of stealing something, and something went horribly wrong. Yeah. So we still don't know the interior of the scene. They have released very little from what they collected inside that house, as they should.
Well, it's not their job to release. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
We want to.
It's not their job to tell us.
When we're interviewing them, we want them to provide the information that we know, that we have inside that scene, that would only be known by the person who committed the act.
Exactly. Put too much stuff out there in the press and you're going to get...
If you have one of these, your home's ready for an upgrade.
Go get YouTube Premium.
In fact,
you put stuff out there in the press and you're going to get people, copycats, claiming responsibility, more fake ransom notes. You got to keep a lot of...
fantasized.
Got to keep a lot of that information not public.
Who didn't know how to execute a plan.
I would have to agree with you. I mean, he's got all the accoutrements, right? The gun. I mean, the whole outfit is just
accoutrement.
Kind of bizarre. I mean, it's like they were. They planned it, but it's like
So if you're going out there, you got the backpack. He's got stuff in his pocket. They're thinking it's a cell jammer, but he's got the backpack, the gloves, the ski mask. He didn't drive across town that way, so he stopped. The guy stopped somewhere near the house and put all that stuff on. Just doesn't make sense. It's not. I don't think your average burglar goes to that extent. I don't know. It doesn't make sense unless they went there to get her.
Reality of actually going and executing the plan may have turned out to be something much, much different. So, I mean, the deal about the video where he's pulling up the plants or something and putting it, that was just, I'm like, what?
So my theory on that, and I didn't make it up on my own. There was some guy. If he went there earlier with the jammer and jammed the Wi-Fi, which even the neighbor's Wi-Fi went off, but then some people just say there was an outage. This is just a theory. He went there with the device, jammed the Wi-Fi so the camera wouldn't work. When he came back, he saw that the camera was on because the recording light, my own doorbell, one light comes on saying that it detected motion, and another light comes on saying it's recording. And he walked up to that doorbell and it started recording. And he's like, oh shit. And he started picking flowers and bushes to kind of pack around there. Otherwise, all he had to do is come back with a can of spray paint or a piece of duct tape and put over that lens. But he's jamming that to turn all the Wi-Fi cameras off because apparently there was another, at least one more, maybe more Wi-Fi cameras in the house too. So with him having this jamming device, which I've never seen in real life, I've only heard of them. If he could jam that, then he would jam all the cameras. And I think he went back thinking he had everything, not my theory in total, but he would have went back thinking, oh, the cameras are all jammed, but they had come back on. And he's like, oh shit, I got to put voltage on them.
What in the world are you thinking there, man? I mean, that's if I got the guy in the interview room, that would be one of the first questions I would ask him. So what were you doing with the plants? And there's a lot to glean from that video and watching his mannerisms and so forth and so on. I think I read the other day where somebody has come out. I think we've got 1,000 now retired FBI agents that have come out of the woodwork for this thing. But
let me on TV. I'll tell you what he did.
That there was a walkie-talkie or a handheld radio of some kind.
So that's the thing in the pocket. Some are saying it's a walkie-talkie. Some are saying it's the cell phone / Wi-Fi jammer, and another guy was saying that they have cell phone jammers, they have Wi-Fi jammers, and then they have jammers that will do both. I believe it's illegal to own that, but I'm not sure. But I've never seen one in real life, only on fake movie TV shit. But I've never seen one for real. I don't know. And I'm an IT guy, and that's something that, we don't go around jamming cell signals and Wi-Fi camera signals.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
I keep thinking, isn't that a strap off of the backpack? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. I mean, it could be. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, anything's possible in one of these kind of investigations. But I thought that was. I don't know what that was. Maybe just to get some more airtime, and I don't know. I don't have any idea. But
that tip I got might actually be right, though, Phil, because we haven't had many sightings of Bigfoot in the Tucson area.
Oh,
so.
Well,
there you go.
There is
Bigfoot did it. Holy
everywhere
shit!
in some form. Texas has it. Arkansas's got. I mean, they're all over the place, so you just never know.
And I think sometimes people want to see a lot of stuff that just isn't
right.
actual.
Well, sure. I mean, and
you
that's
got subscribers coming out of the woodwork.
Right? So
one watcher right now, it's probably me.
I think at this point, and here's what I would wish at this point is that the sheriff would
accidentally dragging my mouse across the other screen.
I think that adds more confusion to this thing. I know he's trying to do. I think he's trying to do the right thing here, but trying to be open and this transparent and all that. That favorite word everybody wants to talk about. But there are just times.
Wait, if they arrest somebody and they get this guy, then the court TV case that'll be big. Everybody will be watching that shit after all the press that this case has got. The court TV, and if you're a fan of the true crime and the crime stuff, Dan Abramson just bought court TV, or his company bought it at least. At least that's what my understanding.
Where we just need to quit talking and
quit
let
talking.
him do at this point do a bi-weekly press release. Here we are. Here's what's done, and we're doing it. We're
all right, we got 5 showing up in there. Any comments?
And then,
does anybody think she's alive? Does anybody think she left the house alive? Does anybody think the ransom notes are real? And does anyone think the family's involved in any way?
Detectives.
That son-in-law who looks like a no-fly zone terrorist, maybe he did it. I don't know. They may still have the sister's car. I don't remember. I think they returned Annie Guthrie's car, but I don't know.
As they have done, and the FBI that are working on this case, they will release things as they think are necessary to release that will hopefully generate more leads.
An incredible investigator. You're still doing some
there
work
you go.
in that regard. So how do they find you? Through the website?
Well, all they have to do is go to my website and then contact me. There is a link there where they can send an email directly.
PugsleyTheCop.com
to me if they want to contact me for any reason. And I get a lot of folks that want to talk about some of these cases that I've been on talking about, which is great.
I wish somebody on here would talk about it. Leave a comment or
a
chat or something.
Make anybody feel that they're not being heard.
Well, Phil, I'm going to leave the final word to you.
There you go.
Thanks again for coming on. I think we could just continue to talk for hours and hours because we've only explored a couple of little tenets of this case, but we'll just have to do it again. We'll figure out another case and get on again.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate you having me on.
Well, we got to get somebody else kidnapped to get these guys back.
Whatever case you want to talk about. And of course, continue to keep the Guthrie family in our prayers and hope for a recovery and a solution to the getting somebody in custody who's done this thing.
Well, folks, I want to thank Phil Waters for joining me today and
Yeah,
for
thank you,
talking about the
Phil.
Nancy Guthrie investigation. And really, I hope what you caught is that we talked about just some basic investigative principles, not just the Guthrie case, and the way in which some of these cases are handled, some of the things that may have been a wart or two, and some of the things that they're doing well. Because I think the police department, the sheriff's office in this case, and the Bureau are probably doing a whole lot of good that we're not aware of. I hope you'll watch for Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok.
Boy, howdy, that's enough with your commercials, buddy. Let's do one of mine. All right, folks, I've had it. The donkeys are out. The elephants are out. They had their chance, and they spent it arguing over who invented potholes. Make room for the possums. We're taking over. No more filibusters. No more fancy ties. No more debates where nobody gets tackled. I'm Billy Cotto, and I'm running for president in 2028. My platform, just one plank. Don't be stupid. My slogan, if it ain't broke, it ain't in Possum County. Let's do this. All right, folks, there you have it. I'll see you at the polls. I'm Billy Clyde Tuggle, and I'm out like a possum in the headlights.
From the victims, from prosecutors, victims advocates, and even the surviving spouse members of these kids who are now 45 and 50 years old.
All right, I don't know what he's talking about because I had him turned off for a minute. Go see what else we can find. That wasn't bad. That was actually good info. Will abductor strike again?
Programming. First, you solder the components.
We ain't soldering no components.
The Nancy Guthrie case. What is it?
Not that,
All right,
not
folks,
that
I've
different
had- no,
from
no,
my
donkeys are
friend and partner Matt Murphy. This sheriff, I think, all roads lead to this sheriff, and I think that it's not a surprise that I have some criticism of law enforcement. But in this particular case,
right,
this
folks,
may be
I've had it.
kind of a blueprint for how you don't investigate a case, how you don't handle the messaging around a case. And it's a tragedy anyway. Everybody has their heart goes out to it, but this sheriff has just been atrocious, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you have any theory, Garagos?
You think he's going to have a job when this is all done?
Criminal defense work on whether this was a likely kidnapping, a likely murder, and then removal of the body?
I always thought that the focus on the family first, which I understand and I get, but I thought that being a bi-coastal elite and living between LA and New York, I missed what people were saying initially who were on the ground there, that look, you're very close to the border. These things happen. I think there was another, I won't call it similar case, but something that had kind of the earmarks of an abduction, and that it probably was a stranger abduction for money at a certain point, and it spiraled out of control because of the supersizing of the case itself.
Interesting. Okay, so Matt Murphy, you have been covering this from the beginning, and yesterday here on our show, we dropped a bit of a bombshell ourselves where we found video of Nancy Guthrie's bedroom, which aired on the Today Show in 2013. I mean, we were stunned to see it ourselves. We're putting together this Nancy Guthrie bit, and we were doing some deep research, and there it was in 2013. There's
All right,
Nancy.
folks,
Look at this,
I've had
standing
it.
in her bedroom.
All right,
This is
that
in the
works.
house from which she was
Just
taken.
checking a button.
Back in
Don't
2013,
panic.
though. And it shows her bed. It shows the nightside table. It shows the window right next to the bed. Very tight quarters there. And in this long back and forth she did with the Today Show anchors on the set of the Today. And to me, I wondered whether law enforcement even knew this existed, because you and I, after having looked at this, could credibly convince law enforcement that we knew what Nancy's bedroom looked like, how it was set up. And if we wanted to write, let's say, a demand for ransom in Bitcoin and send it in and sound credible, we might take a detail from the outside of the house that was readily identifiable to anybody, like the floodlight that was dangling, and couple it with a few details from the inside of Nancy's bedroom, which we had seen thanks to a little bit of research prior to sending our notes, and convince somebody that we were the kidnappers.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's, as they say, the internet lives forever, right? And, I think that number one, I totally agree with Mark that all
Thank you.
roads lead back to this sheriff. And look, I want to be fair, Megan, but this has been a clown show from day one. You've got really good law enforcement on the ground, especially in the FBI. But I've dealt with Pima County on a big murder case out of Orange County, and they were top notch. They were absolutely professional. I don't know what has happened to Pima County since.
Well, reportedly, a bunch of cops fled and did not like working for him, and that he's lost a lot of his more experienced.
Who could have ever guessed that based on the performance that we've seen? I mean, it's just. I think Mark put it perfectly. It's so sad, but yeah, so many of these. I think all of them, but if not every single one of them, most all of these ransom notes were all fake. All the stuff to Mark's friend Harvey Levin, I think those were all fake.
And the Nancy Guthrie home video adds to that possibility. That's my point. Is like, did they know? Did the sheriff know that? Because they were like, oh, they had a detail like where her watch was. I mean, I could easily say her watch was on the small bedside table right next to her bed with the old style sort of lantern looking lamp feet away from a window that was over a bookshelf that had electronics on it. I mean, I guarantee you Chef Nanos did not know about that video and could easily have bought the whole thing as credible evidence that this guy had been in her room.
Well, Chris Nanos demonstrated to the entire nation that he didn't know what a DNA mixture was in one of his interviews, which when he said the lab is having problems with the mixture in Florida, which is there's some lab director who's pulling his hair out or her hair out when they heard that, which is just, it's absurd. So this guy's, I don't know how old he is. I don't know what the deal is, but that it just, there are hardworking, women and men in law enforcement on the ground level on this that probably haven't slept a full 8 hours since this thing started, and they're being misserved. I think the family's being misserved. And you call in the media, you got to expect, the loonies are going to come out and say the vampires abducted her. You got a lot of well-meaning people that are going to come in with tips trying to help that almost never go anywhere. And Mark and I have dealt with a million of those where it's like, I heard noises down the street and it turns out it's the raccoons in the trash can again. Or I heard a lady screaming, but it could be my neighbor's wife. You deal with all those. You got to devote resources to those. And now in the modern era, we have scammers who attempt to take advantage and profit from the apoplectic grief of families that are going through the worst thing that a family can go through. And at the helm of this, sinking ship is this guy that keeps taking to the microphones. Although I think he stopped doing that a little bit. He's doing one-on-one interviews. And now he's coming back blasting the media on stuff. He brought the media in at the very beginning of this, and I've got no criticism of that. But it's like, dude, you gotta be prepared to answer some questions, know your evidence, and take a little bit of heat and criticism. That goes with the job.
I mean, honestly, every missing person, their family,
he may not have a job
would give
anymore.
anything to have the kind of media coverage of the case that Nancy Guthrie has received. The media is a blessing, not a curse. There's some downside, I don't deny that, but it's way more upside in having this much media attention on the case because they require 400 officers. That's how we got 400 officers on Nancy Guthrie. It wasn't just because Savannah was the daughter. It's because the media was constantly out there, constantly peppering them with demands for more information. So please spare me on the media blame. And I don't love the media, even just because I'm a part of it. I wouldn't say this if I didn't actually believe it. Think about this. In 2006, $20,000 equaled roughly 33 ounces of gold at spot price.
Well, while she's doing her gold commercial, got a couple more people, looks like they joined or at least swiped through. If you think she's alive, you think she left the house alive, you think the ransom notes are real or fake, you think somebody from the family is involved, leave a comment so we can talk about it. We'll let Megan do her little gold commercial in silence, and hopefully we don't go to prison for stealing comment by going over there and watching somebody else's stream. There she goes. She's going to be back. There we go.
For watching, if you like what you just...
Nope, that's the end of it. We got to find something else here. What do we got? Let me see what we got here. So let's look at, okay. All right, let's look at this just because it's AI fake. It ain't real. But oh, I pulled that up already. Massive breakthrough as FBI issues arrest warrants in Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping. That's not true. Breaking news. Nancy Guthrie's last phone call with her son-in-law. Let's see what they got to say about that. Get through this automotive pliers commercial we got going over here. Skip. All right.
We think the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. From the start, a common assumption was that this was a relatively amateur operation.
Oh, that is loud.
Premeditated, yes, but not that sophisticated.
That is loud.
Well, now there's a major new focus as the search nears week number 6.
And I can tell you that there is a family member who is being heavily looked at right now as a potential suspect.
The last person to speak to Nancy Guthrie before she vanished was Tommaso Cioni, her own son-in-law.
All right. So there's about a 99.996532 that British guy is an AI voice. He's not real.
The man who had just watched her walk through her front door. At 9:50 p.m., the garage closed. By 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker stopped transmitting. Investigators pulled that final call and flagged it above everything else in this case. The ransom details, the digital blackout, the masked man at her door, it all traces back to that one conversation. And what was said in that call will change everything you think you know about the night Nancy Guthrie disappeared.
All right, let's hear it. I doubt
Nancy
it.
Guthrie had lived in Tucson for over 50 years. She knew every curve of...
Alert, not Nancy Guthrie on the screen with a Nancy written underneath.
Those desert roads. She had buried a husband at 46, Charles, who died during a mining trip in Mexico in 1988. And she raised 3 children after that, alone, without falling apart, and without disappearing into grief. She just kept going, the way mothers do when there is no other option. She became part of the fabric of that community in the way that quiet, steady people do. She contributed to the University of Arizona's Journalism Advisory Council. She helped keep the state's poison information hotline alive in the 1990s when budget cuts threatened to shut it down. She walked the neighborhood with friends. She attended church every Sunday morning via live stream from her living room. She had dinner with her children regularly, board games afterward, laughter around the table, the small rituals that families build without realizing how precious they are until they're gone. Her 3 children, Annie, Cameron, and Savannah, the youngest, grew up watching their mother hold things together. Savannah would...
Come on, man. Look. Even... The fake scratchy stuff
go
on
on
there.
to become one of the most recognized faces on American television. But to Nancy, she was still just her daughter. The family stayed close. Dinners, holidays, matching pajamas at Christmas. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She lived alone in the Catalina foothills, just north of Tucson. And she was so woven into the rhythm of the people around her that when she didn't appear for Sunday church, her friends noticed before the police did. She was expected, she was loved, and she was taken. Saturday, January 31st, 2026, began like dozens of Saturdays before it. At 5:32 in the evening,
I can't
Nancy
believe
ordered an Uber
I think
from
today
her
is
home
after
in the
midnight
Catalina
where I'm at, so
foothills.
it's
The
day
destination
41.
was roughly 4 miles away, her daughter Annie's house. A short ride through quiet residential streets,
These
she
some
had traveled
comments.
countless times, and past the desert landscape and
Is
the
she
soft
alive?
glow of porch lights that define that part of Tucson.
Did she
Dinner
leave
that
the house
evening
alive?
was exactly what it sounds like. The family sat together
the ransom
and talked
notes
about
real or
everyday
fake?
things, life, work,
Did the
plans for
family
the
have
weeks
anything
ahead.
to do with it? Any
Afterward,
part
they
of the
played
family?
board games, a
Tommaso,
small
he looks
tradition
guilty to me.
that had become part of how this family spent time together. There was no tension, no argument, no moment that anyone in that room would later point to and say, something felt wrong. It was just a family evening, the kind that happens in homes across the country every single weekend. Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, had been part of this family since 2006. He taught advanced biology and 6th grade science at Basis Oro Valley, 15 years in the classroom, the kind of teacher students remember. Outside of school, he played bass guitar in a local band, wrote poetry in Italian, spent time studying reptiles and desert wildlife. Christmas photos taken just weeks earlier showed the whole family together in matching pajamas. Tommaso standing beside Nancy, holding the family dog, smiling. By every visible measure, this was a man completely at home inside this family. That detail matters. Hold on to it. As the evening wound down, somewhere between 9:30 and 9:45, Tommaso offered to drive Nancy home, a few minutes along familiar streets. At 9:48 p.m., the garage door opened. At 9:50 p.m., it closed. Tommaso Cioni was the last known person to have seen Nancy Guthrie
lose 45 pounds and
Nancy
become
Guthrie.
unrecognizable by summer.
He drove away. The house went quiet. And in that moment, that completely unremarkable moment, nobody felt a thing. It was just the end of a Saturday. It's the kind that families don't think about again until they have to. After Tommaso drove away, a phone call was made. The exact contents of that call have not been made public. But investigators confirmed it happened. They pulled it from the records. And in a case with thousands of tips, hundreds of investigators, and weeks of forensic analysis,
Wasn't the whole title of this thing about the last phone call she ever had? Let's get to it.
they elevated that call above everything else in the timeline. Think about what that means. Out of everything collected in this investigation, the doorbell footage, the ransom notes, the DNA evidence, the digital records, one phone call between Nancy Guthrie and her son-in-law in the final hours before she disappeared sits at the top of the investigative file. Now, we want to be clear. Law enforcement officially cleared the entire Guthrie family, including Tommaso Cioni, as suspects. What we're examining here is not guilt. It is the documented logic of the investigation. What the timeline shows, what the evidence tells us, and why this call became significant before that clearance came. We are not making accusations. We are following the facts. What would investigators be listening for in a call like that? Whether Nancy sounded distressed, whether she mentioned anyone else, whether something in the tone felt fractionally off. In a case where the window of crime is measured in hours, the last known conversation becomes evidence in itself. The call may be entirely innocent. It may simply confirm that Nancy was alive and well at a specific point in time. But that timestamp matters more than almost anything else in this case, because within hours of it, everything around Nancy Guthrie's home began to go dark. Now investigators call it the window, the 4 hours between the moment that garage door closed and the moment Nancy's pacemaker stopped transmitting. 4 hours in a quiet desert neighborhood where nothing was supposed to happen. 4 hours that remain, even now, the most mysterious stretch of time in this entire case. After 9:50 p.m., there were no outgoing calls from Nancy's phone, no messages sent, no sign she tried to reach anyone. For hours, the digital record around her house was still. Then, at 1:47 in the morning, Nancy's Google Nest doorbell camera disconnected. On its own, that might mean nothing. Devices lose signal, but investigators don't get to decide something means nothing. Not in a case like this. They flag it. They add it to the timeline. They keep going. 25 minutes later, at 2:12 a.m., the home's motion detection system recorded activity outside the property.